Hey up, podcast people, welcome back to another episode of the Gardener's Shed podcast. And in this episode today, I want to just have a chat with you about, well, for want of a better word, shit happens. And today marks the first time I've ever broken a customer's window. So I'll talk a little bit about that, and I'll talk a little bit about what's been going on. And basically, you know, as we get into it a little bit more about accidents that happen in this industry, and things happen. So let's just get in with a little bit of chat on how the season's going. So as this has been filmed, I think this is the closest in relation. So this will be episode 11, and everything's been going fine. We are into May at this current period of time, so I think it's the 11th. I'm filming this on the Sunday, so this will probably be out next week sometime. We've had absolutely blisteringly good weather. It's been phenomenal. One of the things that makes me chuckle is one of my customers, bless her, she's one of them that I don't think she's ever happy, and she was cussing out the weather and says, "We haven't had any good weather yet." And I'm thinking, we've literally had a month of good weather. We have had good weather. Whether it's going to stay like that and it's going to keep being like this, or whether it's just going to evolve, you know, slowly go back to where it's pouring down with rain, who knows. But I'm all up for it. I'm making the most of it. Like I said, it has been really nice weather. It's been one of them where you don't have to check the app. I find when it's poor weather, you're constantly checking the app and you're constantly worried that you're going to get rained off. But when it's like this, you feel comfortable just cracking on, basically. And trust me on this, it has been absolutely cracking. It's been very, very good so far. This season has been good to me. It's weird that I don't think I've ever earned so much, but at the same time, I don't think I've ever spent so much. You forget how quickly things come round and bills. So May is it was this time last year when I bought the camper. Well, I didn't buy the camper van, I bought a van with the idea of turning it into a camper van. And don't get me wrong, there's been ups and downs. There's always ups and downs with me. There's always problems. There's always things that seem to go wrong. And as I said at the start, there's always things where shit happens, basically. It's not bad. It's just little problems, little dilemmas, little disasters. But for the most part, we get through it. But this month's an expensive month. Had the MOT, had the road tax, had the servicing cost, got the AA coming up, got the insurance coming out. So I've got quite a few bills to clear. I think it's next month or the month after. I can't quite remember when it's the first lot of tax that you've got to pay. So, I'm trying to be very mindful with, my outgoings, basically, to cover all of them. Equipment wise, I'm still on the hunt. I'm always looking at equipment. As I said at the start, well, not the start of this, but I've mentioned this in other videos, this year is all about investing back into the business, getting the business to where it should be. I've said this before, I've got an op at the end of the year, and basically you don't know what will happen. It's like any operation. It could be, hopefully it'll be perfectly, it will be fine, but there's always that chance that something could happen. And I've always said, this running my gardening business is something that I want to do for the foreseeable. I've got no plans for anything else. So as such, going into an hospital appointment with a big op, I am, my worst case is that I come out and I can't do as much gardening. If I can work, I will be doing it. If I can't work, well, that's it. I won't be gardening. I won't be doing anything. Because, no matter what, I always plan on working and doing my gardening business. So as such, I want to get ahead. I want to get the kit stocked up. I want to get ready for next season, this season and the following season. And don't get me wrong, I'm not buying stuff to just shove it in the container. But in general, kit does last. Good quality kit lasts. And I'm staking that on the kit that I've already bought. Even the Ego mower, touch wood, which I've been very doubtful on, that's on its third season now, and that thing's had some abuse, and it has had abuse, and I'm not going to lie, I've been nasty to it. Well, not nasty. but it's done things that it shouldn't. You know, it's cut grass that it shouldn't have, it's cut branches and brambles and clippings it shouldn't have, and it's kept on chugging along, so I can't knock it. But kit does wear out, and it's all about keeping ahead of it. And because a lot of my stuff, so the battery gear was all bought at a similar time, and you know, it doesn't take long for, you know, a £300 replacement part, and then a few months later a £400 tool, and you know, costs start adding up pretty quickly. So I want to sort of stay ahead of it. One of the things I want to do by the end of this season is get into the realms of a couple of nice mowers, because the still mowers, they're just taking a hammering. There's work that, and I always try and spread the load out, so not one mower gets all the abuse. So the majority of my lawns, the little still roller mower does the majority, but also the ego mower subs in for it. Just the same as the big lawns, it's all on the Still 21 mower. I have got the Still roller mower. I'll be honest with you, I haven't pulled that out all season. It's not cumbersome. It's just the lawns are different now. You know, the work's different now. But it's a backup, and I'm glad I've got it, because trust me on this, backups are so important. So, like I said, I want to be getting a couple of nice mowers for next year. As I said, the Still ones are just taking an hammering. So I want to get something for next year that's capable of mulching. I want a 21 that I can put on anything and it'll mow it. And I want a daily user. I want a mower that's excellent bagging, that I'm using all day, every day, and it'll take the abuse. So I've roughly, in my mind, I've got my eyes on the Artesia mower going into next year, the little 48 one, plastic box. I think it's got a plastic body. It's got a professional warranty, so I'm going to have a couple of years of stress-free, hopefully, with it. And it's got the pedigree, so I'm thinking of that. And I'm either going to get a wee bang, or I'm going to get a grin mower or something like that. I just want a good mulching mower. But then the wee bangs, they've got the side discharge as well. So we'll have to see. I have two kind of big lawn, and I've got another big lawn. And you know, I always look at kits, and I must admit those wee bang 77s, they look pretty tasty. But at the moment, I've only realistically got one lawn that it could be used on. And I don't want to get into it, stuff like that. I don't think I'll go any bigger. And plus the fact I'll have to change the layout of my van to get, you know, something like that in. So that's sort of, you know, on the back burner. And then I want to try and get the new mowers done over the next couple of months. And then going forward from that, I want to be into the sort of territory of basically just putting back into my own account savings, because end of the year, as I said, I've got the ops, I want to save for that. And also I'm planning a road trip in the camper van. I'm hoping to get away for... The thing is with me, I do have work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get all the work done in a 2-week block, and then say to people, look, it's because I do 4 weekly visits for some people, so it'll be a case of I'll get all the work done in a couple of weeks, and then that's going to give me, you know, 2, 3, 4 weeks off, and then I'm just going to bugger off for that amount of time. I'm just going to go up Scotland. Let me know on any good sites, but I'm thinking of doing the NC500. I'm thinking about taking a few days to get there, and then I'm going to go do the NC500, and then I'm going to do the islands because my auntie lives on them, so I want to go and explore them. And then I'm going to come back the opposite way on the NC500, and then again spend a few days driving back. Basically, I don't want to be spending all my time by the wheel. I don't want to rush it. I want to, you know, even if I do a couple 100 mile in one day and chill out, you know, I want to take my time with it. So that's what's been going on lately. So like I said, it's the first time I've ever done, well, it's actually the second technically. So I broke one of my customers' windows, and yeah, it's one of them. It's frustrating, it's very annoying, but I can't blame anybody else other than myself on this one. So let's just paint a picture, let's set the scene. It's a commercial building, and it's got almost like a conservatory front to it. Imagine like double glazed, front to it, glass roof, glass sides, all that. And it's got block paving outside, and there's always these little weeds that come through. Now what I do traditionally is I've got a Wolfgarten wire brush thing, and typically what I end up doing is grubbing them out with that. So I end up scratching them out with that, and then basically just blow them all away. Now it's my fault, I went to the van and I haven't got any. I need to order some, and I'm going to order them in a bit after this podcast episode. So I looked at them, there's quite a lot of growth this time, so I thought, right, I'm going to take the tops of them off with a strimmer and then apply a weed killer. Now it is at the back of my mind, I am trimming right next to glass. So what I did was I blowed off all the area to try and get rid of all the stones. And I kept the revs, the cordless revs, lowish, fresh cord, kept me back to the unit. And as I was going along, I heard a thud and a bang, and I looked, and I've popped one of the panes. It's like I said, there's no, I can't say a bird did it, anything. It's me. They've got CCTV as well, so they know it's me. And I wouldn't walk off, and I'll talk about that later when it comes to problems and stuff. Never ever, if you know you've done something, own up to it. So with that being said, I had to sort of formulate and think, right, next sort of step with this. So I spoke to somebody who's a double glazier, so I know him actually. He's a good guy. He reckons it's a few £100 to repair it. A mate of mine, I've been talking to him, and he says there's a place literally down the road that you can buy the glass from. And I'll be honest with you, I'm toyed two ways. I'll go up with my mate, and then we will basically take the pane out and then get it done and dusted there and then, or give it to my mate to do, and it's done right. And I think sometimes with my luck, if something happened or problem happened, or something ended up happening, then we're in trouble basically. But I'm going to think about it. I might end up doing it myself, to be fair, because my mate, he's just had a piece of glass put in, and he paid 40 quid for it. So this chap wants 200 odd quid. So, like I said, we will have to see on that. But then it's one of them where you pay that bit extra and you know it's done right. And if it isn't done right, he goes back and sorts it till it is done right. So I went round to the... I know where the lady lives, and she's a good customer, to be fair. She's really good. So I went and knocked on, and she was a bit surprised to see me. And I said, look, I'm ever so sorry, but I've had an accident up at the unit. And I said, as I was basically going about my job, I popped a pane. And she was like, she wasn't angry, and I says to her, look, I said, a couple of options. I can get somebody up to repair it and replace it at my expense, or you can get somebody who you feel comfortable with to repair and replace it and invoice me the amount. And she says no. She says, look, sort it out yourself, you'll be fine. Basically, I'm happy with whatever you decide. And we got talking, we had a joke about it. What's she saying now? She said to me, have a smashing time. I said, I've already done that. And so yeah, we had a laugh about it. But she did say to me, how did you do it? And like I said, they've got cameras. They're going to know how I've done it. I says to her, I said, look, I did something I shouldn't have. I said I was trimming near to it. I said, normally I have something to use on it, but I didn't have it this time. So I just used the strimmer to take it. I say it's completely my fault. It was the wrong tool for the wrong job in the wrong application. And she just says, look, it's going to happen, isn't it? I said, yeah. I did say to her, I says, there's only ever one window that I've broken, that's my own. I said, I've never broke a customer's one. So we'll see on that. As I say, it's just one of them at the end of the day. It very much is. It is what it is, sort of thing. So all that sort of said and done, like I said, it is frustrating, and it's for want of a better word, it's you can't help but get annoyed by it. But in reality, it's one of them where I always say about having a pot, having a fund, having money tucked away. I call it the fuck up fund. That even if I don't do it and this guy does it, it's 200 odd quid, it's done and dusted. In a weird sort of way, I honestly think if you are upfront with a customer and let them know, they will respect you a lot more that this has happened, because they know that this is the course of action. This is what SGM, this is what, Joe Blogg's gardening service offers. That if he fucks up or he has a problem, he sorts it. And in a weird sort of way, I think people respect you more. And in a weird way, I think there'll be more respect from this lady towards how my business is run. That's how I see it as well, that there's always a plus side to it. I had it a few months ago. I was moving a guy's trailer. His garden, it's not a junk zone, it's just got a load of stuff in it, a load of crap basically. And I was power washing, I had to move everything, and I moved the trailer and I heard crunch, and I could see that I'd broke the light, and there's no two ways about it, it was me. So I looked at the part, I ordered a part, it came literally next day. I explained to the chap what had happened, what's going to be the course of action, that I'm going to swap both of them because you buy them as a pair. I said, ever so sorry about that. And he messaged back and he says, Luke, thank you for being so professional, and thank you for being so, forthright and looking out for, your customers. And in a weird sort of way, I think, I'm not saying use a disaster to your advantage, but when the bad gets bad, this is what sort of, I think this is what weeds us out from the unprofessional gardeners or the job and knockers to this is what a professional gardener offers. That if there is a problem, you're backed, and I have public liability. I think it's 5 million or something, or 10. For what it is, it's not much more to go higher. But aside from that, if there's a problem where it's not an insurance job, I'll sort it. I'll hold my hands up and basically sort it. That's how I operate, and it's done on a I'll tell them first basis, not a they'll have to tell me and then I'm on the back foot. I'd much rather sort of be upfront and honest with people. And things do happen. I remember I was at a job, it was when I first went off poorly, and it was one of the first jobs back, and one of my customers, she'd had a retaining wall put up, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not saying this, but they did a crap job, and I had a chap helping me out, and it's like a little gap across the brook, and he jumped from one side to the other, and he hit the gravel, and as he hit the gravel, he didn't even touch the board popped out, and I thought, okay, I watched him, and you know what, he never said anything. He never said anything to me until I told him. And this is another thing, I've never dabbled with staff, I've only ever had people helping from very rarely. But it's like that if I wouldn't have seen that, and it was on the last, go round before we're gone, that homeowner could have saw that. And straight away, you're on the back foot, because that homeowner will be saying, this has happened on your watch, you didn't tell me, I found it. Opposed to, I watched this chap do it. Now, it wasn't his fault. I was angry with him because he never told me. I wasn't angry with him that he did it. It was, I watched him and I could see him cog it, and he never mentioned it. So I mentioned it to the customer, and I told her exactly what had happened, and we went and had a look at it. And I'll be honest with you, it would have happened even if she'd done it, because the chap who'd done this install, he'd like toenailed the screws in, and there was literally about 5 mil of thread holding it in. So she says, look, that's, I can see why it's failed, all that sort of stuff. And to be fair, she got him back, and he didn't fix it, he bodged it. But, it is what it is, and it's my conscience clear there. So I'll talk about that little process. So for me, I think as a gardener, you should always be looking, I think not just a gardener, as a gardener and a business owner, because ultimately it's the business that's going to bear the brunt of it, or you. If you do something and it's, you've got freak accidents that are like, as you are gardening and you're mowing your lawn, all that, and a Canada goose flies overhead, dies in midair from an heart attack, and then it comes crashing down, it smashes through someone's conservatory. That's not your fault. That is what it is. If you're mowing and you hit a stone, and even if you've got no gravel and it's on a lawn and it pings off, and I've had it on lawns where they look nice. I remember once I mowed over a fork, and I don't know how it got there, couldn't explain it. The homeowner couldn't explain it. but I hit this fork and it shot through. It clanged on the blade. Luckily it was fine, and it smashed the top of the deck, not the deck, the top of the grass box. So it was a me problem. I had to get a new lid for the grass box, but it was also, it shouldn't have been there. But so, you know, things happen all the time. And if you're mowing and you flick a stone and it goes through someone's window, I know there is that, not a loophole, but because you're on a customer's property and it's their stone, I think they say it's an occupational hazard, so you aren't liable. But you are really, because this is a deal breaker. This is what's going to affect you coming back and what that customer's going to say about you. And it is, it's an occupational hazard. I think you get occupational hazards all the time. You know, even cat shit on the lawn, it's an occupational hazard. So what I tend to do is the properties that you trust and don't have to worry about, you know, where they've got no windows nearby or they've got a wall all the way, you know, you can do whatever you want and you're fine. There's properties there I don't have to worry about, but there's properties I've got where I go, and one of the first things I do is get the blower and I walk around the lawn, and I'm literally spending that time looking. If there's any dog shit, cat shit, blow it off the board. I don't pick it up, I move it. Whether it ends up in the border, or if there's that much of it, it ends up on the cut side of a lawn and I'm moving it around. It's not my job, that's my stance. I tell people this if it's mentioned. I'm not here to tidy up after other people's pets, should I say. And I know cats aren't people's pets, especially if it's a neighbour's, or it is their pet. It's not my responsibility. I don't do it, I never do it, I never set it, I just move it. And if it is that I can tell that people are taking the mick, especially with dogs, they get pulled up on it, even on the first visit. And the cats are the worst one. You can't expect an 80-year-old woman who's got no pets of her own to come out and pick cat mess up. I aren't bending down and picking it up. I will move it with a blower. I'm not I'll just mow over it gardener, because it stinks and it gets in your van, it gets on your kit, gets on your trousers, you put stuff. So to me, they're occupational hazards. And then you've got accidents by negligence, and that's a strong word, but it's true. You have, you know, so if you are gardening and you leave all your tools lying around and that doddery old bugger comes out and trips over, unfortunately it's your fault. You know, or even if you leave one tool out, you know, you leave a rake and he treads on it, smashes his face open, it's your fault. If you are strimming and you know there's gravel there, and you know, like me, that was an accident by negligence. I knew what could have happened. I had another way of dealing with it, or I could have chose not to do it that way or done something else, but I chose not to. I chose to wing it, and we all do it. If you think I don't do that, you do. We all do it. We don't run a red, but we've all amber gambled. We've all had close encounters, or not close shaves, but as we've been driving, you know, we've just not seen something, then we've seen it and we've thought, bloody hell. We've all had these little microscopic, I know it's escalating up, but that's the point I'm making. We all have it. We all have these little blips. And just the same as if, you know, you could say to yourself, I have never, ever, ever, you know, done a gardening task and I've never took a risk. Well, I think you have. Or you're really, really dull to it and you're making it all the time, basically. So like I said, you know, people choosing to trim near gravel, it's like I see it. I've got a commercial site where it's a car park. I'm not going to go there when there's cars there. So I do it on a Sunday morning when there's no one there. I've seen it in car parks where there's the contractors and they're literally strimming around and underneath people's cars, as in literally putting the strimmer right underneath. And it's, you know, it's like that. If you hit something, damage something, pull something, ding something, it's on you. And that's an accident by, in air quotes, negligence, or maybe a better word is an oopsie. You know, we all done it. We've all done it. So for me, I think it's like anything, it's identifying the problem. I think as well, you've got, when it does happen, again, this is how you deal with it. It makes all the difference. For me, it's a case of owning up, telling the customer, taking the hit, taking the financial hit, taking the bollocking. Me personally, so with this job that I've done, I told the woman I will be putting the invoice in tonight. So I'm still expecting to be paid from that job. I honestly think if you cock something up and you're willing to put it right, you should at least be paid for that job. There shouldn't be any, oh well, I'll do a freebie because of this problem. If that customer says to me, you know, like if I said to that customer about that window and she says, Luke, don't worry, I'll pay for the window, then for me, I wouldn't put the invoice in, and I'd tell her that. I said, Luke, you know, this one's on me, basically. And I've done that in the past. I've broke garden ornaments and plants and stuff, and I've told them, and they've still don't want. I said, well, Luke, it's, you know, I do feel guilty. If you're not willing to, if you're willing to pay for it, then I'll give you my time today for free. And it helps me. And, you know, and the reason I do it is, one, like I say, it helps me, but two, there's no comeback then. So if 6 months down the line, you know, she says to, you know, she rings me up and she says, oh, Luke, I'm not happy with you. You know, you did that visit last time and, you know, you broke that ornament. And I said, well, we've sorted that. I know you paid for it, but I also gave you a credit on the time. I didn't charge you for the time I was there. You had that visit on me. So like I said, if a customer does take the stance and doesn't want your services after that, or they expect it for free, me personally, I wouldn't say I'd walk away from a job like that, but it would definitely put that customer on the back burner. It would definitely put it down on my pride. Still service the prop. It depends what it's worth to you, basically. But like I said, for me, you know, and this is the thing, what people don't understand is, us as businesses, to have that duty of care, we need to have basically things into place to allow that. So I've got robust public liability insurance, but also I've got a fund there that if there is a problem, and for me to do that, I've got to basically have things in place to allow me to do that. You know, I need to have the money coming in. I need to have the right money coming in, the right amount, and, you know, the right work for that. And this is what people don't understand, that, and this is one thing that winds me up, is when people, they want cheap gardeners, they want the cheapest gardener, but they want the best job. But how can somebody, you know, if they're willing to pay them peanuts, how can they expect top service? You know, and to me, this is another part of offering that top level of service, is if there is a problem, we own it and we sort it. So then, if you do have an accident, for me, it's, you know, making sure it doesn't happen, looking around, surveying it. I've told you what happens if there is an accident. This is my personal opinion. It's up to you. Some people might walk away and say, well, it is what it is. It's like that job. It's on an industrial estate. It's a little bit rough. I'm not saying I could have put a brick next to it and walked off, but ultimately they have got CCTV. And I wouldn't feel right if you know, even if he didn't, I wouldn't. I'd rather own up. For me, I'd rather own up, get the bollocking, get it sorted, and then that's it. I can sleep easy, opposed to trying to blag it and get away and having a restless night's sleep for a few weeks or until the next visit. For me, I won't be having any guilt going to this visit. I won't be apologising again after this. One of the things I am going to do is just get the lady, you know, a nice box of biscuits, just as an apology, and then that's it. That's the situation's put to bed. She's had it fixed, she's been compensated, and we move on from it. I don't want, and people don't want it, I don't think, where people keep bringing it up. And, you know, I've had it in the past with a customer. There was something that happened. It was like a set of Christmas lights. Is there any lights in the trees before I start cutting them? Oh, no, nothing. Start cutting them, comes out, you've wrecked my lights. My husband's just told me. I said, well, look, I'm ever so sorry, but I did ask you. And she was making a big deal about it. And I said, look, I did ask you, but do you want me to get... No. But she made a point of mentioning it every time I did the shrubs. And it evolved into, by the end of it, she was almost making it out to be my fault, in terms of, well, we don't want you making another accident like you did last time. And I'm thinking, well, no, you didn't tell me. So anyway, like I said, the third sort of point is the most important one, and this is what marks, you know, an accident to negligence, is making sure it doesn't happen again, is looking around and thinking, right, what can I put into place? So a couple of years ago, I was trimming a grass verge and I broke my van window, and I was lucky because I smashed my van window, but behind, if that wouldn't have smashed my window, it would have smashed the customer's window. And So I went out and bought a verticut head instead, and I used that. Now, in all fairness, I don't use it every time I do that job. I try and weigh it up. Really, I probably should. But the verticut head's there for instances where, you know, the grass is next to gravel or it's butting on gravel. So I've got that tool now to make sure that hopefully doesn't happen. And touch wood, we've been fine. As I said, typically I use the Wolfgarten to rake it out. This time round I'm going to order some more, and I'm going to order some more spares. So I'm going to order 2, and I've got 2. Then I can put 1 on a tool, and I've got 1 as a spare. Because again, I don't want this to happen. And I think putting things into place, putting actions into place and responses into place is important. It really is. You know, it's like for that chap where I broke his tail light when his tail light on his trailer. I did say to that chap that next time we power wash it, I won't be moving any of your furniture because of the risk of it happening. And he's fine with that. So I think you can't have things that happen to you and not put things into place. I think another one is, this is the worst type, which is there is people out there that will try it on basically and will cause issues. So I mentioned in a previous vid, I don't think I mentioned on the podcast, but I definitely have on the YouTube channel. A few years ago I went and did a quote for a person, let's just say. I don't like to say, but the house was a shithole. And when I went there, the son was super weird, super strange. He basically, everything I said to the mum, he relayed back to her parrot fashion, as if it was his idea. The place was very messy, very overgrown. It needed a lot of work doing. It needed a lot of materials in the form of gravel and slate. This customer was basically pretending to be the best customer ever. Luke, get it, whatever it needs, you get it, we'll pay for it after. We want the whole job doing, so just get all the materials and we'll pay for it after. Now in reality, this property could be an absolute stunner of a property if it was had a bit of care. Basically, it's a lovely house, but it isn't. It's just owned by people who... And anyway, so I did this quote. I had my heckles up already because of that son, but I agreed to do the first job, which would be to clear everything, and then we'll start with the gravel. She was a bit hesitant about that. I gave her a price, but she was like, yeah, it's fine. What ended up happening was I had a phone call off a friend of mine, and he says, Luke, I just saw you at this woman's house. Don't go there. Don't get involved. She's not paid the previous people she's done gardening and the previous people for them. He was telling me about, he's seen it where there's been 2 lots of gardeners now dumping the clippings back. And also there's been a builder or a plumber who dumped the clippings back because she didn't pay him. So I was like, okay, well, cheers for that. So I trust my mate, and also I trust me. That was enough for me. I rung up and cancelled the job. Oddly enough, she was fine about it. I was very surprised. There was no protest, nothing. No try and get me back. I honestly think she knew. She knew I'd had the tip off, and she thought, well, why fight it? So that had gone on, and that was about 3-4 years ago. And I drove past her house, actually. I noticed a big pile of brash outside. I never thought anything of it until my mate, same mate again, he says to me, do you know this other gardener in, where I live? I says, yeah. Well, I don't know him, but I know of him. And he says, basically, she must have had him, must have not have paid him because he's dumped all the clippings back over. And it just shows us people that they're up to tricks. They're up to it. They'll never change. So, you imagine, this is the thing, again, this frustrates me with people, is our job's hard enough. We've got to work around the weather, we've got to foot the bill for everything. There's accidents that can happen so easily, but also there's people out there that want to steal off us, rip us off, not pay us. So, like I said, it is super frustrating. So, I'm going to finish this episode up now. If it is that you guys want to get involved in the podcast, it's sgm-maintenance@hotmail.com. Or if you've got any, like I said at the start, if you've got any funny stories, grievances, you want to like a little bit of a rant or a bit of an agony uncle, then drop me an email and I don't mind, and I'll include it in the podcast. So have a good day, guys. As usual, keep on gardening.